The small German Shepherd puppy lay motionless, its frail body barely clinging to life in the harsh, unforgiving terrain. The barren landscape stretched endlessly, devoid of anything but dust and dry earth. The puppy's once glossy coat was now matted with dirt and blood, and every shallow breath seemed to be a fight. Around it, vultures circled in the sky, their beady eyes fixed on the tiny form below, waiting. Each flap of their wings sent a chill through the air, and the puppy, too weak to move, could only watch them with a faint, fearful gaze. Its chances of survival seemed almost non-existent. What happens when hope is almost gone? This is not just a story of survival, it's the story of a dying canine puppy, abandoned and surrounded by vultures, with no one to help. Alone in the wilderness, death seemed inevitable, and the puppy's situation grew more desperate by the minute. But then, through the bleakness and the heavy silence, a sound broke the tension, a distant engine, a glimmer of light. A soldier, weary but determined, arrived. His eyes scanned the desolate scene, locking onto the small, fragile creature in the dirt. This is the moment when hope comes alive, the soldier thought, kneeling beside the puppy. He could feel the weight of what was at stake. In the midst of the darkness, something shifted. A story of courage, survival, and an unbreakable bond was about to unfold. The soldier's act of kindness would change everything. The German Shepherd puppy was barely recognizable. A once proud, sturdy pup, its body now emaciated and frail, seemed to hang on only by a thread. Its coat, once a soft, luxurious tan with black markings, was now a patchy mess, matted with dirt, dried blood, and mud. The poor animal's ribs jutted out sharply beneath its skin, each shallow breath labored and fragile, a testament to the weeks of neglect it had endured. Its legs, weak and trembling, could hardly hold its weight. The once energetic, playful puppy was now reduced to nothing more than a shell of its former self. The air around it was thick with a heavy, oppressive silence, broken only by the low, distant rustling of the vultures above. These scavengers, their cold, sharp eyes trained on the puppy below, circled like predators sensing weakness. Every so often, they would swoop lower, their dark, menacing shadows casting a grim pall over the scene. The puppy barely moved, too exhausted to even lift its head. It was clear that it had been struggling for days, perhaps even longer, its small frame weak and drained from lack of food and water. It was a miracle it had survived this long, but the puppy's will to live was undeniable. The vultures, patient and menacing, seemed to be waiting for the moment the puppy's strength would finally fail. Each time the puppy's weak body flinched or its breathing became more erratic, the vultures would descend a little lower. The air felt heavier, the sense of impending doom almost palpable. Despite this, there was a flicker of something in the puppy's eyes, an instinct to survive that had kept it going this far. Its eyes, though filled with fear and confusion, still reflected that glimmer of life. Beneath the terror was a will to keep going, a primal drive to survive, no matter the odds. Its muscles ached, and every shallow breath felt like a battle, but still, the puppy remained on the ground, staring into the distance as the vultures continued their circling. It had no choice but to endure, to hold on a little longer, hoping against hope for someone, anyone, to come to its aid. Despite everything, its fear, its confusion, the hunger gnawing at its gut, it would not surrender. The puppy's struggle was one of survival in its rawest form. Each moment felt like an eternity. But somewhere deep within, it refused to give up. Every flicker of breath, every shiver of its body, was a testament to its fight for life. It was a small thing, helpless and abandoned, but its spirit was stronger than it seemed. Still, the odds were insurmountable, and the vultures were closing in. Would the puppy survive? Would it find the strength to make it out alive, or would the vultures finally claim their prize? The answer, unknown to the puppy, would come in the form of a soldier, someone who would see the struggle and make a choice that would change everything. But for now, all the puppy could do was lie there, exhausted, with the vultures waiting, inching closer to the inevitable. The soldier had seen his fair share of conflict, battles that tore at the soul, places where fear and danger were constant companions. Yet, despite the horrors he'd witnessed in the battlefield, he remained a man of principle, a protector of life in any form. His worn uniform, dusty and frayed from countless missions in hostile terrain, was a stark contrast to the calm composure he carried. His calloused hands, hardened from years of service, clenched the rifle slung over his shoulder, but his heart was gentle, compassionate even in the worst of circumstances. He had been deployed on a rescue mission deep in enemy territory, his team working tirelessly to aid those in need, to offer hope in the most desolate corners of the world. His eyes were sharp, constantly scanning the surroundings, instinctively alert for danger. But that day, as he maneuvered through the harsh landscape, something caught his attention, a faint movement in the distance, the fluttering of wings, a shadow that seemed out of place. As he neared, his heart sank. There, in the barren wasteland, a small German Shepherd puppy lay on the cracked earth, barely clinging to life. The puppy's fur was matted and dirty, its ribs visible beneath its frail body, and vultures circled overhead, their beady eyes focused on the defenseless animal. The puppy's shallow breathing was the only sign of life in an otherwise desolate scene. It was clear that the vultures had been watching for some time, waiting for the moment when the puppy would finally give in to the harshness of its existence. The soldier's heart twisted as he surveyed the situation. It was a grim sight, this tiny animal, alone and on the brink of death, surrounded by scavengers eager to claim their prize. For a moment, he felt paralyzed. His training had taught him to assess risks, to evaluate situations with cold logic, but none of that mattered now. This was no longer a battlefield. This was a living creature in need of help, and the soldier's instinct was to protect it. He approached cautiously, his boots crunching on the dry earth. The vultures noticed him but did not flee. They circled more aggressively, sensing that this was a moment of potential weakness. He could feel their eyes on him, calculating whether he would be a threat or an easy target. But his focus remained on the puppy. He dropped to one knee beside the puppy, his hand hovering just above its weak form. The dog's eyes flickered open, filled with fear and confusion, but there was a faint recognition of a human presence, perhaps hope, perhaps something more instinctual. The soldier's heart ached as he saw the struggle in the puppy's eyes, but he knew he couldn't waste any more time. He had to act. With the vultures closing in, the soldier knew that hesitation was no longer an option. He pushed through his initial doubt, his training kicking in. The conditions were harsh, the vultures a dangerous threat, but none of it mattered when there was a life to save. His hand gently touched the puppy's fur, a promise to protect it. He could feel the tremor in the puppy's body, the weakness, but also the fight, the will to survive that the puppy had left. Without another thought, the soldier scooped the puppy into his arms. He knew he had mere moments before the vultures attacked, but his focus was unwavering. As he stood up, the heat of the sun bore down on him, and the weight of the puppy in his arms became more apparent. But he didn't flinch. His determination was stronger than ever. His voice, rough but steady, whispered words of reassurance to the trembling animal. "Hang in there, little one. You're not alone anymore," he murmured. With a sense of urgency, he turned back toward the safety of the camp. The vultures, sensing the change, scattered into the sky. The soldier didn't stop to look back, his only concern now was getting the puppy the help it needed. As he moved forward, he couldn't help but wonder, how had this innocent creature ended up so alone? Why had it been abandoned to die in the wild? But for now, the answers didn't matter. What mattered was that the puppy was no longer alone. The soldier had made his choice, and with that decision came a responsibility to save a life that had been left to wither in the harshest of environments. The soldier's heart, though hardened by years of service, now felt something different, a connection, a bond, as he held the puppy tightly against his chest, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. The soldier's heart pounded as he held the weak German Shepherd puppy in his arms. The vultures had dispersed, sensing that the moment of vulnerability was over, but the soldier knew they would not give up so easily. With the puppy still trembling in his arms, he moved quickly, scanning the surrounding area for any immediate threats. The terrain was hostile, with sharp, jagged rocks scattered across the ground, and the sun beat down relentlessly, making every movement feel like a battle. The soldier's instincts took over as he moved with purpose, his eyes darting back and forth, ensuring that no further danger would catch them off guard. He could feel the puppy's fragile body pressed against him, its ribcage rising and falling in shallow breaths. The dog was too weak to even lift its head, but the faint spark of trust in its eyes was unmistakable. The soldier cradled the animal closer, his resolve solidifying with each step he took. He couldn't afford to fail now. As he trekked through the rugged terrain, he encountered a few more vultures circling overhead, their presence a constant reminder of the danger the puppy had just narrowly escaped. The soldier instinctively quickened his pace, his muscles aching from the strain of carrying the fragile animal. His rifle was slung across his back, but his priority was clear: get the puppy to safety, away from the vultures and any further threats. There was no shelter in sight, but the soldier knew his team was nearby. He pushed forward with determination, his steps sure despite the exhaustion creeping into his bones. The puppy's trust was growing with every moment that passed. It didn't struggle against him, didn't whimper in pain. Instead, it seemed to hold on, as if it too was starting to believe that it was going to be okay. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, the soldier reached a small, makeshift camp. His team had set up camp near a rocky outcrop, offering some protection from the harsh conditions. The soldier immediately went to work, gently laying the puppy on a clean tarp. His hands, though rough and battle-worn, moved with an unexpected tenderness as he checked the puppy's condition. The first priority was to provide water. The soldier quickly unlatched his canteen, kneeling beside the puppy and carefully offering it a few sips. The dog's tongue flicked at the water, its throat dry and cracked, but it drank eagerly. It was a small sign, but to the soldier, it was everything. The puppy wasn't beyond saving. Next, he offered the puppy some food, simple rations that would provide nourishment and give it the strength to heal. The soldier knew he had limited resources, but he wasn't about to let the dog go without every chance to recover. As he fed the dog, he spoke softly, his voice a quiet contrast to the chaos of the world around them. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I'm not leaving you. I'll make sure you're okay. You're not alone anymore." The puppy's eyes, once dull with fear, were beginning to brighten. There was a faint glimmer of recognition, and for the first time since the soldier had found it, the puppy seemed to relax. Its body, though still weak, stopped trembling. It looked up at the soldier, as if understanding the promise he had just made. The soldier couldn't help but feel a deep rush of empathy as he looked into the puppy's eyes. The small creature, so innocent and vulnerable, had endured unimaginable hardship, and yet here it was, alive, against all odds, beginning to trust again. The connection between them was undeniable, and the soldier found himself softly stroking the puppy's matted fur, offering whatever comfort he could. In that moment, despite the exhausting heat, the hostile environment, and the constant reminder of the dangers they had faced, the soldier's heart softened. He had spent years in combat, seen death and destruction in its rawest forms, but nothing had affected him quite like this. He was no longer just a soldier on a mission, he was a protector of life, a beacon of hope for this defenseless creature. And in return, the puppy, against all odds, was offering something more: trust, a bond that no battle could break. As the soldier sat beside the puppy, he felt the weight of his actions. He had given this dog a second chance at life. He had rescued it from the vultures, from the brink of death. And in doing so, he had saved a part of himself too, a part that had been hardened by war and years of conflict. In that quiet moment, the soldier understood the true meaning of his mission. It wasn't just about survival, it was about compassion, about offering kindness in a world that had too often known only pain. The puppy, now resting quietly beside him, seemed to understand that too. And for the first time in its short, painful life, it felt what it had never known before: safety, warmth, and love. The journey to safety was not going to be easy. The soldier knew that the harsh terrain, coupled with the puppy's weakened state, made the trip even more perilous. But there was no other option. The puppy needed medical care, and it was his responsibility to get him there. Carefully, the soldier cradled the puppy in his arms once more, being mindful of its frail body as he began the long trek back toward his base. Each step was deliberate, as the soldier scanned the rugged landscape, his boots crunching against the dry earth. The weight of the puppy, though slight, felt heavy in his arms. His instincts kicked in, always alert, always prepared for anything. But in this moment, his focus was solely on the small life he carried, an animal so vulnerable, yet so full of untapped resilience. The puppy, despite the overwhelming exhaustion that had nearly claimed its life, began to show small signs of resilience. Its breathing, though still shallow, seemed more steady. The faint flicker of energy within it was growing with each step they took. Every now and then, the puppy shifted in his arms, its legs twitching slightly, as though responding to the soldier's gentle movement. At times, it would let out a soft whimper, but the soldier's steady pace and quiet reassurances were all the puppy needed. His presence seemed to comfort the little one, offering something the puppy had lacked for so long: security. The soldier's thoughts were a mix of reflection and quiet resolve. He had been through battles, seen friends fall in combat, and fought for survival in ways most couldn't fathom. But holding this puppy, seeing it fight for its life in the most basic, primal way, made him reflect on his own journey. The parallels were impossible to ignore. He thought about his own survival, how every day felt like a battle, a struggle to stay grounded amidst the chaos. He thought about how sometimes the simplest things, like a warm meal or a safe place to sleep, could feel like a distant dream. He knew the puppy must have felt the same way, lost, abandoned, and on the brink of surrender, but never giving up. That was the bond between them: survival. It was a fight they both understood too well. The soldier's mind drifted to his own personal struggles. The war had taken its toll on him, but this puppy, this small, fragile creature, had a way of putting things into perspective. The puppy had fought tooth and nail to survive, and as the soldier carried it back to base, he could feel that same fighting spirit in himself. He had been through so much, and yet, there was always hope on the horizon. If the puppy could keep fighting, then he could too. His journey felt symbolic. He was carrying more than just the puppy. He was carrying the weight of resilience, of hope, of determination. In many ways, the puppy's survival was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, when the vultures were circling, there was always a chance. The soldier's legs ached as they moved forward, his arms sore from holding the dog, but there was something about the puppy's silent fight that pushed him forward. As they moved closer to the base, the terrain grew more familiar. The soldier's pace quickened, feeling the pull of duty and the desire to get the puppy to safety. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rocky path, but the soldier pushed on. The camp was within reach now, and the puppy's breathing, though still shallow, seemed to be growing more steady. It was a small victory, but it was a victory nonetheless. Despite everything, the puppy had held on. And as the soldier approached the camp, he realized that both he and the puppy had been through something extraordinary. The puppy had survived against all odds, and so had he. But in that moment, they weren't just two souls bound by survival, they were two beings who had found a connection, a mutual understanding of the struggle. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, the soldier could see a glimmer of hope. This puppy had not only defied death, but it had also sparked something within him, a reminder that no matter how bleak the world seemed, there was always a reason to keep fighting. The soldier approached the medical tent, the sight of the base offering a sense of relief, and handed the puppy to the medics. As he did, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, knowing that he had been part of the puppy's rescue, that he had been the one to carry it through the hardships and back to safety. And in return, the puppy had given him something even more valuable: hope. The soldier, holding the puppy gently in his arms, finally approached the base, his heart racing with a mix of exhaustion and hope. The camp, though humble, was a sanctuary for the injured and weary. As soon as they arrived, a team of medics sprang into action, their professionalism and urgency giving the soldier a sense of relief. The vet, a seasoned professional with years of experience, quickly took charge. She was calm yet efficient as she examined the puppy, her experienced hands moving over the frail body with care. The soldier, still holding on to the puppy, watched anxiously as the vet checked the little one's vitals, noting the severe dehydration, malnutrition, and the multiple injuries covering the dog's body. Her eyes narrowed with concern as she palpated the wounds, which were raw and infected, clearly the result of days, if not weeks, of neglect and exposure. The soldier's heart sank as he watched the vet's face. It was clear the puppy had been through hell. But despite the dire circumstances, the vet remained hopeful. "This pup has been through a lot," she said, her voice steady but filled with sympathy. "Severe dehydration, malnutrition, multiple injuries, it's a miracle he's alive. But, if he can hold on just a little longer, there's a good chance he'll recover." The soldier nodded, a rush of gratitude washing over him. The vet's words gave him a renewed sense of purpose. The thought that the puppy could make it filled him with both relief and a quiet sense of pride. He had done the right thing by bringing this little fighter to safety. As the vet continued her assessment, she immediately started the process of stabilizing the puppy. She hooked him up to an IV drip, feeding fluids into his weak body, replenishing the water and nutrients he had been lacking for so long. The puppy's body trembled as the fluids began to flow, a faint pulse of life returning to him. The vet also started treating the open wounds, carefully cleaning and bandaging them, her hands skilled but gentle as she worked. The soldier stood back, watching the entire process unfold before him. His hands were still trembling slightly from the intensity of the situation, but now, in this controlled environment, there was a palpable sense of relief. He had carried the puppy through the harshest conditions, and now, the puppy was in good hands. As the puppy began to stabilize, the soldier could see the smallest signs of recovery. His breathing, which had been shallow and erratic just moments before, began to deepen, a sign that the fluids and treatment were working. The vet gave a cautious but optimistic smile as the puppy slowly opened his eyes, blinking at the light above him. "There's still a long road ahead," the vet said, her tone softer now. "But he's a fighter. I think he's going to make it." The soldier felt a wave of emotion wash over him, and his heart swelled with relief. The puppy was still weak, but the worst was over. He had a fighting chance now, and that was all that mattered. His mind flashed back to the moment he had found the puppy, surrounded by vultures, barely clinging to life. He had acted on instinct, but now, looking at the puppy, he realized that there was something far deeper connecting them. The soldier stepped closer to the puppy's side, his hand trembling slightly as he reached out to gently stroke the dog's head. The puppy, still groggy but aware of the presence next to him, let out a weak whimper. The soldier smiled softly, the connection between them deepening with every passing second. He had given this dog a second chance at life, and in return, the puppy had given him something that he hadn't realized he needed, a reminder of the strength that lay in survival, in hope, and in the power of doing the right thing. The vet glanced up at the soldier, sensing the bond that had formed between the two. "He's lucky to have you," she said, her voice filled with quiet admiration. The soldier gave a small nod, his throat tight. "No. I'm lucky to have him." As the puppy continued to rest, finally able to sleep peacefully, the soldier sat by his side, the exhaustion from the day's events slowly catching up with him. But even as fatigue set in, he knew that he had done something truly significant. The puppy was safe now, and he had a fighting chance at life. For the first time in a long while, the soldier felt a sense of peace settle over him. The puppy's journey was far from over, but they were no longer alone in their fight. They had found each other, and together, they would face whatever came next. Over the next few days, as the puppy's body healed and recovered, it became clear that something far more powerful was taking place. The physical recovery was important, but the emotional healing was truly extraordinary. The puppy had been through unimaginable hardship, yet now, in the soldier's care, it was beginning to regain not only its health but its spirit. When the soldier first entered the room after the puppy's initial medical treatment, the dog had remained curled up, its body stiff and its eyes wary. But with every visit, the puppy's posture began to relax, its eyes softened, and it started responding to the soldier's voice. At first, it was a subtle thing, a flick of the tail when the soldier spoke or a brief look of recognition when he walked by. But soon, those little gestures became more frequent, more intentional. It was as though the puppy, exhausted from years of mistrust, was learning to trust again. The soldier, whose own experiences in the harsh realities of battle had hardened him, found himself unexpectedly touched by the puppy's gradual transformation. The tender touch of his hand on the dog's coat, the soft murmur of his voice, and the simple act of feeding him all started to break through the walls the puppy had built. For the soldier, this wasn't just about saving a life, it was about mending a bond, about teaching the puppy that kindness and compassion still existed in a world that had been so cruel to it. Each day, the puppy's strength grew, both physically and emotionally. At first, it was hesitant, the faintest hint of fear still in its eyes whenever the soldier would get too close. But soon, the puppy began to approach him willingly, looking up at him with those dark amber eyes filled with curiosity. Slowly, the soldier reached out, offering the puppy his hand. The puppy sniffed it warily at first but then leaned in closer, licking his fingers gently. It was the first true sign of trust. Days turned into weeks, and the puppy's recovery continued. It began to wag its tail whenever the soldier entered the room, its body no longer stiff with fear. The once frail and malnourished animal was growing stronger, more energetic, and even began to exhibit signs of playfulness. The first time the puppy dropped a toy at the soldier's feet, its eyes wide with hope, the soldier couldn't help but smile. It was a simple thing, a small stuffed ball, but to the soldier, it was everything. He gently tossed it across the room, unsure if the puppy would even show interest. But to his surprise, the puppy dashed after it, its body stronger and more agile than it had been just a few days before. It picked up the ball with its mouth, and for the first time in a long while, the puppy's face lit up with pure joy. It ran in circles, tail wagging wildly, as if the weight of its past had been momentarily lifted. The soldier watched the puppy with a deep sense of satisfaction. He had seen battlefields, destruction, and loss, but this simple moment of innocence was one of the most powerful things he had ever witnessed. The puppy wasn't just recovering physically, it was rediscovering the joy of life, the carefree moments that had been stolen from it for so long. Over the next few days, the soldier made sure to spend as much time as he could with the puppy. He played with it in the yard, fed it regularly, and continued to work on rebuilding the bond between them. There were moments when the puppy would nuzzle up to him, its small body pressing against his side in a sign of affection. It wasn't just the physical care that the puppy was receiving, it was emotional healing, and that was evident in the way it looked at the soldier, with eyes that were now full of trust and gratitude. The puppy's transformation from a terrified, broken creature to an energetic and playful dog was nothing short of miraculous. But for the soldier, the most rewarding part of the process was seeing the puppy not just survive, but begin to thrive. The bond they shared was something that could never be broken. The puppy was no longer just an animal in need, it was a companion, a friend, and a symbol of resilience, both for itself and for the soldier who had saved its life. As the days went by, the puppy's playfulness became more pronounced. It would chase after sticks, jump around excitedly, and roll over onto its back, offering its belly for rubs. The soldier would laugh, feeling a deep warmth in his heart, a rare emotion in a life filled with hardship. The puppy had brought a sense of peace to his otherwise tumultuous existence, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was light. And in those moments, when the puppy curled up beside him, resting its head on his lap after a long day of play, the soldier knew that this was not just a story of rescue. It was a story of healing, of love, and of the powerful bond that had formed between them. They had saved each other. The journey for Bruno, once a frail, abandoned puppy, had only just begun. After his miraculous recovery and the strong emotional bond that formed between him and the soldier who saved him, the next chapter of his life started with a new, significant role. Bruno wasn't just a rescued dog, he was about to find his true purpose. As the soldier continued his service on base, it became clear that Bruno was more than just a companion. He had natural instincts that made him an ideal candidate for K-9 unit training. Bruno had proven himself physically and emotionally, and it was time for him to put his skills to the test. His transformation from a weak, scared puppy to a strong and resilient dog was nothing short of extraordinary, and now, it seemed like fate was leading him toward a path that would not only help others but honor the bond he shared with the soldier who had never given up on him. The training began gently at first, with Bruno learning the basic commands and the structure that came with being part of the military K-9 unit. Bruno's handler, the soldier who had saved him, became his guide and mentor in this new life. The connection between them grew deeper during each training session. The soldier could see Bruno's natural talents in action, his sharp nose, his ability to focus, and his loyalty were evident from the start. It was as if Bruno knew he was meant for something more, something bigger than the pain and suffering he had endured in the past. As the weeks passed, Bruno's training intensified. He learned to track, to sniff out explosives, and to protect his handler during dangerous missions. With each new skill, Bruno grew more confident, but it was the trust between him and his handler that truly made him stand out. Their bond had evolved from the initial rescue into something inseparable. Bruno was no longer just a dog, he was a partner, a teammate, and an essential part of the team's success. It was during one of these intense training exercises that Bruno first displayed his true heroism. The mission involved navigating a challenging terrain, and the soldier, alongside his team, had to clear a potentially dangerous area of explosives. Bruno, with his keen sense of smell, was the first to detect the hidden explosives, alerting his handler and saving the lives of the entire team. The soldier watched with pride as Bruno's instincts took over, and with a swift command, Bruno managed to successfully locate the threat, preventing a catastrophic outcome. Bruno's ability to stay calm and focused in the face of danger proved that he was a force to be reckoned with. The soldier couldn't help but feel a swell of pride in his chest as he saw Bruno, once the frail, fearful puppy, now a fully trained and reliable canine. Bruno had gone from being a stray in desperate need of help to becoming an asset that saved lives. The soldier knew that their journey had only just begun. He had given Bruno a second chance at life, and in return, Bruno had shown him what true loyalty, bravery, and resilience looked like. The bond between them had transformed into something that could never be broken. Bruno wasn't just his dog, he was his partner, his equal. As Bruno continued to excel in his training, the soldier's pride only grew. Every time Bruno completed a mission successfully, every time he followed orders with precision, the soldier knew he had made the right choice by bringing Bruno into the military fold. Together, they made a formidable team, facing challenges and dangers side by side. And with each mission, their connection deepened, cementing their place not only in the soldier's life but also in the lives of the people they were protecting. Bruno's story was no longer just about survival, it was about purpose. He was no longer the abandoned puppy surrounded by vultures but a canine hero, making a difference in the world. His loyalty and courage in the face of adversity were an inspiration to everyone around him, and as the soldier watched Bruno confidently navigate the dangerous terrain of their missions, he couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. Bruno was no longer just a dog, he was a hero in his own right, and the soldier knew that together, they would continue to make a difference in the world. What started as a story of rescue and survival had become one of courage, loyalty, and partnership. Bruno was a symbol of resilience, and the soldier was proud to call him not just a companion, but a hero. Bruno had come a long way from the frail puppy who had been abandoned to die, left alone in a barren landscape surrounded by vultures. His journey from that moment of despair to the alert, confident canine that now stood alongside the soldier was nothing short of miraculous. But it wasn't just the physical transformation that made Bruno remarkable, it was his unwavering loyalty, his courage, and his commitment to protecting the soldier and the team that made him a true hero. During one mission, Bruno's training was put to the ultimate test. The team had been tasked with clearing a volatile area, known for its hidden dangers and unpredictable threats. Bruno, as part of the canine unit, was assigned to sniff out explosives and detect any risks that could jeopardize the team's safety. The mission was crucial, and the stakes were high. The team had to move cautiously, knowing that one wrong step could trigger disaster. As the team advanced, Bruno's keen sense of smell began to pick up something in the air. He stopped dead in his tracks, his ears alert and his nose twitching. The soldier, who had been working alongside him for months, noticed the sudden change in Bruno's behavior. He trusted the dog implicitly, knowing that his instincts were sharp. Without a word, the soldier signaled to the rest of the team to stop. They waited, watching Bruno closely. The canine's eyes were fixed on a small patch of ground ahead. Bruno's tail was still, his body tense with focus. His training had taught him to be alert to even the slightest changes in his environment, and today, it was clear that he had detected something dangerous. After a long moment, Bruno took a few slow steps forward, moving cautiously toward the area he had identified. The soldier knelt beside him, watching with bated breath. Bruno's ears perked up as he approached the spot, his nose hovering just above the ground. It was then that the soldier realized what Bruno had sensed. A buried explosive, well camouflaged and hidden under a layer of dirt and debris. The team held their breath as Bruno continued to probe the area. His precision was remarkable. He had located the threat with minimal disruption to the surrounding area. The soldier immediately alerted the bomb disposal team, who moved in with the proper equipment to safely defuse the explosive. As they worked, the soldier couldn't help but reflect on the bond he shared with Bruno. Here was the same dog who had been abandoned, who had fought for survival against all odds, now saving lives in the most dangerous of environments. Bruno's transformation was complete, from the dog on the brink of death to the hero who had just averted disaster. It was moments like this that made the soldier realize how much they had come to rely on each other, not just as handler and K9, but as partners. The soldier watched with pride as the bomb disposal team defused the explosive, the danger now averted thanks to Bruno's incredible instincts and bravery. The team members gave the dog an appreciative pat as they finished their work, and the soldier couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Bruno had saved them all. The recognition that Bruno received for his actions was swift. The story of his heroism spread, and soon the military leadership took notice. Bruno was awarded a medal for his bravery and quick thinking under pressure. The soldier stood by his side as the ceremony took place, his heart swelling with pride as Bruno was honored for his service. The bond between them had been forged through trust, training, and the shared experience of survival. And now, Bruno was being celebrated as a hero, a title he had truly earned. For the soldier, this was a moment of immense pride, but also one of deep reflection. He thought back to the first time he had laid eyes on Bruno, the helpless puppy surrounded by vultures. It seemed like a lifetime ago, and in that time, Bruno had transformed from a wounded soul into a courageous companion. The soldier had always known there was something special about Bruno, but now, it was clear to everyone. Bruno had not only survived against the odds, but he had become an essential part of the team, a dog who had proven his loyalty, his intelligence, and his bravery time and time again. As Bruno stood tall, receiving the accolades he so richly deserved, the soldier couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. He had saved Bruno's life, but in doing so, Bruno had changed his own. They had become more than just a handler and a dog, they were a family, bound by a bond forged in the heat of battle and the strength of mutual respect. Bruno's heroism had solidified their place as an inseparable team, one that would continue to face whatever challenges lay ahead, side by side. The soldier sat quietly in the corner of the camp, his eyes fixed on Bruno as the dog lay resting at his feet. He had come so far from the day he first found the frail, abandoned puppy. The memory was still vivid, how the dog had been surrounded by vultures, weak and near death. That was the day their journey together began, though neither of them could have known then how their lives would change. The soldier smiled softly, watching Bruno as the dog shifted in his sleep, his coat now thick and glossy, his body strong and well-fed. It was hard to believe that this vibrant, alert K9 had once been a mere shadow of the animal he was today. Bruno had been through so much, betrayal, loneliness, and pain, but through it all, he had never given up. His survival was a testament to his resilience, his will to live, and the bond that had formed between them. The soldier thought back to the countless moments they had shared since that day in the barren landscape. From the first time Bruno had responded to his touch to the day they had completed their first mission together, side by side, their relationship had deepened. What started as a rescue mission had blossomed into something much more meaningful. Bruno was no longer just a dog he had saved, he was a partner, a friend, a companion. In the heat of battle, in the quiet moments of reflection, and in the simplest acts of daily life, Bruno had proven time and again that he was more than just a K9, he was family. The soldier couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. He had given Bruno a second chance at life, but in return, Bruno had given him something invaluable, a sense of purpose, a reminder of the strength of loyalty, and a bond that would never break. Together, they had faced challenges that seemed insurmountable, and through it all, their connection had only grown stronger. Bruno had not only become a hero in the eyes of the military but had also saved the soldier in ways he couldn't quite articulate. The dog had taught him about perseverance, trust, and the incredible power of second chances. This wasn't just a story of survival. It was a story of hope. It was about the strength of an animal who, against all odds, had overcome unimaginable pain and emerged as a loyal, courageous companion. And it was about the soldier who had stepped in when the world seemed to have abandoned Bruno, giving him the care and love he needed to heal. Together, they had defied the darkness and found light, showing that no matter how dire the circumstances, there is always hope for a better tomorrow. The soldier thought about all the animals out there, waiting for someone to give them a chance to be loved, to heal, and to thrive. Bruno's story was a powerful reminder that adopting or fostering an animal can change their life, but it can also change yours. Animals like Bruno deserve to know love and care, and by opening our hearts and homes to them, we can make a difference. As the soldier looked down at Bruno, now peacefully resting by his side, he whispered softly, "You're my hero, Bruno. You always will be." And as Bruno's tail gave a faint wag in response, the soldier knew that their bond would remain unbroken, no matter what came next. They had faced the worst together, and now they would face the future as a team, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. This wasn't just a story of survival, it was a story of a bond forged in the fires of adversity, one that would last a lifetime. And it was a reminder that no animal should ever have to face life alone, without hope, without a second chance.